If you come out of political organizing, chances are you've realized the people who are attracted to those kinds of events are very different from the kinds of people who are attracted to other kinds of events. And so this big question raises its head. How to organize with cool, kind of like regular sorts of people who aren't going to be like extremists or try to ruin the lives of the more regular kinds of people that you're trying to associate with, right? Like, how do you do that? This is a question that my friend Eamon Stephen over at the Swoletariat asked me. And I said, hey, man, that's a great idea for a conversation. Why don't you come on this epic marathon live stream? And so he did. And the conversation you're about to see is exactly that. But before I roll it, I just want to say really quick, Theory Underground is not just a YouTube channel. It's not just a podcast. It's also a publisher and lecture course site, right? We have lectures. We have ongoing seminar research seminars. We got it all. Okay, we got lots of really cool stuff. Stick around till the end of the video to see more about that and how to get involved. But also, there's a course coming up really quickly you might be interested in, Introduction to Marxism. If you're like the Swoletariat, Marxism is the bee's knees. Or if you're like me, you can't think without reference to Marxism anyway. Even if you might not call yourself a Marxist, it's pretty important. And it's one of those things we'll just get to know better and better throughout our entire lives, right? Marx might have said that the time is to change the world. Philosophers have only really interpreted it. But now it's on us to interpret Marxism and the world and try to change it. We have to do all of it. And so, yeah, Chris Catrone is called the last Marxist, a tongue-in-cheek term that's been granted to him as the organizer of the Platypus Affiliated Society. You're going to really like this course, I promise. So go sign up for it right now. The image is on the screen for those who are on YouTube. If you're on the podcast side of things, I hope the link is in the description if I didn't forget to put it there. Okay? All right. And with that, let's get to it. Organizing with normies with Eamon Stephen of the Swoletariat. So welcome back, everybody, to Theory Underground. So great to have you all on the YouTube and podcast arms of Theory Underground, which is, of course, a lecture course and publishing platform. We have Swoletariat joining us now. Eamon, how's it going, man?
It's going okay. A little underslept, brain's a little foggy, and I've also been battling leftoids all morning, so pretty frazzled by that, but we're here. We're good.
There's a lot of people suffering from leftoidism, isn't that right?
Yes. That's the main symptom of capitalism, I think, today.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah.
Burn.
Yeah. And so what were you about to ask him behind the scenes there, Nance?
Yeah, so you had said you were like, yeah, man, I'm pissed or whatever, pissed at the left or whatever, because they're advocating for state censorship. And I am out of the loop. I'm blissfully so. I don't spend much time on internet, social media places. I don't really pay attention. And so I asked you, like, what else is new? Like, what is going on specifically that's got them up in a tussy or whatever?
Well, I'll just start with saying that the real person to talk to about, if you want to get into like the state censorship regime and the left's relationship to it, is Doug Lane. That's been his big bugaboo for the last year or two.
True.
But for, I think it was today or yesterday, last night, Emma Vigeland, Majority Report, who replaced Michael Brooks, she reposted cheeringly that JK, there was a lawsuit now, not a lawsuit, criminal case now, I guess a defamation case against JK Rowling and Elon Musk from France, accusing them of, I guess, defamation against Imane Khalif, the boxer. And they were basically like, they were just saying, this is a male, there's XY chromosomes, or at least there's good reason to believe that this is a male and fighting females, including many of the female boxers that fought Emain Khalif and the other boxer that supposedly has XY chromosomes. Anyway, so Emma Vigeland, Majority Report, very big on the left, basically just cheering on this. Haha, now you're going to get it. Now you bad guys with the bad thoughts, the bad beliefs, now you're going to get your comeuppance from the state.
Damn.
Yeah, so J.K. Rowling was like retweeting. She was like, this image of Khalif, who looks pretty masculine for a woman, right? Like looking kind of like down towards like this gal who's like crying, right? They're both in this ring. They had been fighting. She's talking about how this is so paradigmatic. This image really captures the moment of, and then she said something about like biological males taking the place of women in these sports and whatnot. And of course, there's a whole fandom of people who love to hate JK, and there's a bunch of people who like to defend her. I personally worship at the altar of JK Rowling. I think that she's the best person to ever exist. I think that she's never done anything wrong. She's never, ever hurt anybody. She's definitely never used her platform to like signal boost someone who's an idiot and then that person get jumped by people. That nothing like that ever happens. But like in a sort of sense, I'm not being completely sarcastic, because there is this little part of me that's just like, look, most women do not feel they can speak on this issue because they are precarious. And so she is less precarious because of her success. And so she speaks on something that a lot of people resonate with. And then, of course, the disproportionate, virile, and insane sort of reaction that she gets over time, making her out to be the worst person ever. She's an actual Hitler, see? Like that whole thing, it just kind of like breaks my heart, because what that is reflecting from the position of these social change makers, these wannabe activists who kind of hate Brigader. It's telling my sisters, it's telling my coworkers who are women, it's telling every mother in the world that if they were to voice their own opinions, this is how they would be treated. And of course, that's not an exaggeration, because it is true, because we've already seen it. We see people getting fired. We see people getting sued for stating what has been for millennia, not to mention millions of years, the overwhelming opinion of every human being on the planet. More than 99% of humans on the planet have agreed with J.K. Rowling's position, which is also Nina Power's position, which is basic. And there is differences between those opinions, but where they agree is you can't change sex. You can do stuff to your body, and you can definitely appear differently, and we can definitely respect you, but not if you try to say that there are no differences, okay? And also, great harm can be done by trying to eradicate those differences. But the issue with Khalif is that instantly the media was like, actually, Khalif is a woman, and so J.K. Rowling, this is just goes to show your trigger finger on Twitter got you in trouble this time. And I was like, oh, how unfortunate for J.K. Now she's going to have to walk that one back. But then, of course, it gets more complicated, because it turned out that a lot of people, their gut reaction, which was obviously based in the moment of the culture war and its deadlock and all of the sort of reactions people have when it comes to these things, was also based on some kind of like their intuition cashed out. I think, I don't know how you'll say it, but yeah, something about XY chromosomes turned out to be involved here. So,
well, not we don't know for sure, because they can't release they technically can't release the actual data, because that would be illegal. Like you're not allowed to release someone's medical results, right? In any country. And they're an international organization, the IBA. So I mean, they wouldn't be doing that. But they said in the press conference, read between the lines. They failed the gender test, therefore read between the lines. That it's going to be like, they can't say they tested positive for XY, but they did fail the test. And the reason they had the test in the first place was because they had indications that there was high testosterone. Likely, well, again, you have to read between the lines here, very likely from the regular drug testing that they all have to do. So 1+1+2 plus how Khalif looks, like the shoulders, my God, the brow, like the hips, like get it together, people. Why are you defending this? Like, why are people dying on this hill so hard?
Well, it's because we all know a woman in our lives, probably like a woman in our lives who gets bullied this way, being told, "Oh, well, look at those shoulders, look at those hips," right? And so she's bullied for it. And not only that, but Khalif also, there is this wiggle room, and I kind of argued with you on Twitter about this, where it's like, look, if you've got the outside appearance, and actual like genitalia of a female, and you've been raised as a girl and you've come into womanhood, then it's okay. Then not only is it okay to say I'm a woman in that case, but also I was giving you shit for mispronouncing her, because I was saying I don't think you should be calling her a him in this case, because come on, dude. Like, she's lived her life as a woman, and for good reason. God gave her a vagina. Maybe it doesn't work the same as everybody else's, but come on. Like, she has to live in this world. We have to live around people like this. There are other people like this. And so I wanted to see a little humanity from you. And I also said that, she's intersex, and so she, intersex people kind of get to choose. And then this is where Roses Painted Red retweeted what I said or whatever, and said that I should, or just responded and said that I should be embarrassed for my position and for what I said about intersex, because I clearly show that I have no idea what I'm talking about. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is why I fucking hate Twitter, because this is how people engage. I'm not embarrassed. I could turn out to be wrong on intersex. I could turn out to be wrong on gender. I could turn out to be wrong on sex. I could turn out to be wrong on my own name. I could turn out to be wrong on living in a world instead of a simulation. I could turn out to be wrong about my politics. I could turn out to be wrong about my religion. And guess what? Because I'm a fucking philosopher, I am not embarrassed to be wrong. I actually seek out being wrong. And your little homie there is just a douchebag. That's what I think about. Oh, but then again, now that I've said that, that's Twitter. I'm sure that they're a very fine person. I'm sure that they're a beautiful, smart person. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So what do you want to say to all that?
Yeah, valid. Like, socially, absolutely. They were born with a vulva and were assigned or observed to be female at birth, lived their life as female, as a woman, and it's on their passport, right? And the IOC doesn't do, like, their whole argument. The Olympics was that, well, we don't test chromosomes. Instead, we just trust what the passport says, which is absurd, of course, because that's not going to tell you anything about intersex conditions. But that's what the guy said in his press conference. That's what they go on. But the and you absolutely, there's no issue with technical male, intersex or not, living, presenting, being socially a woman. You're a woman, as far as anyone's concerned, for every context except for where it matters, like
except for where it matters, like
a women's shelter or sports or a prison. There's a couple others, but like, yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and of course that'll get you called a TERF. Now, I don't care. I think that word is being operationalized like Nazi. Of course, there are some pretty scummy people who embrace that term and actually harass people and just literally hate trans people, which is really heartbreaking. But also, like I'm saying, that term has lost a lot of value, like the word Nazi, like for the reason that we started off this whole series today with that whole analysis, or what was it called? That sort of, that breakdown of the witch trial. But with all of that said, I don't want to stay on this for too long. And I know it's what you've been focusing on. I know you're feeling gaslit about it. I think a lot of people are feeling that, and a lot of people wish that they could just move beyond it. But my question, just for clarification, because I'm not sure what you were saying, is like, so are you saying that people are simping for the state and censorship or something like that?
They're cheering on that there's this court case now being filed. So so France is now, there's a case with possible criminal consequences for Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling having thinking the bad thoughts.
Good. Good. I hope to see it, you know, get drawn out over 6 years, and Elon Musk to put, you know, $6 billion towards this thing, and people can get to the bottom of it, because we definitely need a better way forward, right? I don't like the activist solutions. I don't like the normie solutions. We need special leagues and brackets and bathrooms for people who shouldn't be in certain spaces, but also we need to end the bullying and harassment. And also, this needs to stop being the center of everything. And it's insane to me how much people have become gender reductionists, right? Like back in 2019, everyone was calling us class reductionists, even though we were like fully like queer embracing and putting pronouns in bios and doing all of the capitulations possible. They just like they took that and ran with it. They give them an inch, they take a mile, right? And in the meantime, everyone's become gender reductionists, which means that if you don't pander to, capitulate to, center, and ultimately live in fear of you know, the consequences of not towing this line, if you happen to disagree on something that that the activists agree with or are saying is true, which is at the same time to put yourself on the side of 99% of humanity for all time, then you're bad. Which means that 99% of humanity has been bad for all time. Maybe that's true. I'm open to it. I do believe we're moving into a post-human, transhuman kind of future, and there will be definitely spaceships in the future with anarcho-kitties, and they will actually look like cat people, and they will be cyborgs, and that's okay with me. And so, like, we're experimenting with the gray areas, but sometimes the area is not so gray. And so, I don't know what you want to say about any of that to kind of close out this portion, and we'll move into my big what I take to be the theme of this, which is how do we organize in a way that brings about cool normal people and not cowardly or cringe lunatics. We'll get into that in a second. So first of all, it's what I want to vibe and riff off of, like with you and Nance. But first, any concluding thoughts on this whole Khalif situation or the broader discourse revolving around it?
There's a big theme is a misunderstanding of what sex is and what intersex is. So intersex does not mean an in-between sex. Intersex just is an umbrella term for 40 or more DSD conditions. And there's a few main ones or like that have subcategories, but the one Khalif almost certainly has, and same with the other boxer, the Chinese one, I believe, and the same one Caster Semenya has, is 5-alpha reductase deficiency. And the reason you can almost certainly conclude that is because if they're XY plus high testosterone, then and presenting female, if you know anything about intersex conditions, that's basically the one it can be. It can't really be any other ones. There's other conditions where they might have XY, but for whatever reason they're completely like weak, extremely feminine. Like you wouldn't see one boxing being athletic. So the fact that there's elevated testosterone or likely elevated testosterone, and just the look of them alone kind of tells us what DSD it's going to be. And then just intersex conditions are always going to be either male or female or failed attempts at male or female. There's no in between sexes. It doesn't mean it's ambiguous. The body is either organized around producing small gametes or it's organized around producing large gametes, male or female. That's it.
And so I said that was biological reductionism, because, you know, in the context of, you know, using he, him pronouns for her, I was saying, well, this is biological reductionism. Being female or male does not make you, if we define it the way you've defined it, and I think that's a great definition, sure, but that doesn't logically conclude that there's nothing there in gender, that gender is just completely made up by the left or whatever. It's like, no, there is this cultural aspect. There is the choice that has to be made for some intersex people, like what role are they going to take on? Of course, what is the role of a woman? What is the role of a man? That's a big problem. But you said it's not. But you said it's not. You said it's not, or that if it is, then it's not really a problem, right?
like the fact of just understanding what sex is says nothing about gender really, like, or how we interpret what gender is. Like the expression of the sex, whether you're feminine or masculine, or you want to live as one or the other gender, it says has nothing to do with how what the actual, like, what sex means and what intersex conditions are.
Right. And so it's like we are simplistically, and maybe that's good, saying that there is this distinction between sex and gender, that on the side of sex is science, and on the side of gender is culture, and therefore sociology and psychology and critical theory and everything else. Also, obviously, a vicious, vile, opportunistic, profiteering industry that meets where the in the center of a Venn diagram between psychiatry and surgery and therapy coincide. And that's too bad, because I do think that insofar as we're talking about gender through the lenses of psychoanalysis and theory, that's great. But as soon as it gets co-opted by therapism, ego psychology, surgical procedures, and then you have children being told that this is the only way they can actually be themselves without them wanting to kill themselves, given to the fact that humans are so suggestible, not to mention children, that is concerning. And anybody who's grabbing their pearls hearing adults having a conversation right now, I've been open about that position, what I just said, ever since the beginning of Theory Underground. You can go back if you need to. And like I said, the adults are talking. So if you really do have much of a problem with it, write me something that sounds mature and convince me you actually are coming from a place of intellectual and moral integrity before you go off. Because at the moment, Stephen Roberts up above in the chat, I think he's 100% correct. We're trying to have a real conversation here about something that we're not supposed to have a conversation about. He said, Dave is attempting to have a balanced, rational, and reasoned debate about an issue that has social consequences for all concerned. Not possible in the rabid culture wars on both sides. I think that's kind of true. I do think that we've kind of fostered the conditions of possibility for being able to have a conversation like this here, and hopefully on tour and through the conferences and stuff like that. But I want to switch gears here to this question of how to organize in a way where you can, you and your wife can meet cool people, normal people, fine people, but not cringe lunatics. So tell me, how did this question come about?
The question came about because my wife went to visit some of her old friends from York University. And if anybody's from Canada and knows York University, they'll know exactly what the problem is going to be here. York University is kind of the hub in Canada for feminist, and basically anything woke, all the most academic ideas, postmodern ideas, woke ideas, all
The worst ideas, smelly ideas, bad ideas. They're not sending their best ideas. Yeah. Okay.
So Liz visits her friends, and she's trying to talk about how her cat died and how she's sad about it and how she had to euthanize it because she's a vet. And then her friends start talking about how great it is that the Canadian state allows euthanasia. And then Liz was like, well, I don't really sure about that, because now it's like I can see the slippery slope now. And have you heard about this case and that case? And they're just kind of very liberal brained, and they listen to, CBC, and everybody who listens to CBC has the right liberal opinions, and they're good people. And then they took that conversation then onto abortion and to gender and all these things, one after another. And it just they couldn't have a normal conversation between friends, and they couldn't really disagree. And I was just remembering, growing up in university in particular, I lived with a bunch of business students. They would just make fun of me for being the socialist, right? And I didn't care. None of my friends, in fact, were lefties, even though I was always the one socialist, because the socialists that I knew, or at least they weren't fun, they weren't cool, they weren't partying, they weren't going out, they didn't have they weren't hanging out with girls at all. It was a shit show.
They still don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm used to hanging, it's the type of people who cannot be in the same room with somebody who doesn't share their beliefs. ultimately. Like if they find out you're a Trump voter, then it's over. They're just going to be aghast and they can't talk to you. But there is the same thing does exist on the other side.
Yep.
I know other
Yep.
people that
It
are a
does.
little more like edgy libertarian bros or conservative bros that like they find out you read Marx or you have any left position, they can't like process just hanging out with you and like being okay with being friends with people that have differing opinions. And so I think it's more on the left, but it is a symptom of kind of both sides. And so I was that I just
Hello, beautiful listener. I see you. Just kidding. I can't. But I have to interrupt this just really quick to make my own advertisement, my very own, the one that says subscribing, liking, commenting. It actually makes a really big difference. So even if you're just on the free side, shout out to you. Thanks for doing it. Make sure to subscribe and all that. Especially people on the podcast, make sure to say something nice in the reviews. It actually really helps. And I need reviews on every platform, all right? Because I just hate to say it, it matters, you know? I try not to chase the almighty algorithm, but also I don't want to have all of this beautiful content go to waste. And so I'm trying to walk a fine line between quality and quantity. And I come out way heavier on the side of quality, as you can obviously see we do here. But come on, let's push that subscribe button, you know? Let's smash that like button, you know? Like teach the algorithm what you actually care about. All right? And then maybe it'll show it to other people. That's great. All right, let's get back to it.
being friends with people that have differing opinions. And so I think it's more on the left, but it is a symptom of kind of both sides. And so I reached out to Dave. I'm like, Dave, I need to start a social club for people who aren't either debate bros or moralizing leftoids. And how do you form like an in-person social group in your community, in your city that invites the right type of people who maybe can discuss these things without getting
Right.
angry at each other or moralizing at each other, or who can just hang out without bringing that stuff up at all.
Right. And so I want to actually open that one up to the entire audience. I don't know how many of you actually associate with normal people or people who approximate some kind of model of what that would even mean. Obviously, none of us believe that it's real. We all know it's ideology. But nonetheless, there are people who walk around aware that the idea of normality is ideology, like us. And then obviously there are people who just live their normal fucking lives and they live in the ideology and they don't think about it. And that's great. That's great. You know, I don't believe that everyone has to get radicalized to live in some great future. In fact, I think that radicalizing normies is one of the most dangerous things you can actually do because look at how many fucking idiots it creates. And so, you know, BreadTube's successes were its worst sort of enemy, right? Its success is having somebody like Noah Samson, like making videos, right? Like having a normie like that doing political philosophy is just like, especially like acting like he's centering the fringes, right? Like it's and acting like the people's champion when he does it. It's just like, yeah, when your champion is a brainlet, you know what I mean? Like this is just, I mean, very nice brainlet, very great people. We love them. But like when they just don't have a lot of substance and they're really just socialites, it undermines the whole thing that you're doing. And so like the question is like, well, where can we get together with people who are cool, who aren't going to sort of sit there and go, what's a woman? Do you know what a woman is? Like Matt Walsh. As soon as you start socializing with them, you know, they're not wearing, people who aren't wearing Black Rifle Coffee, you know, shirts with like 3%er tattoos and who are acting like, you know, we've probably got 3 years before, you know, the regime change and they're preparing for it, or, you know, it's the end of civilization and they're prepping for it, versus like, you know, people who take left, liberal, progressive, dogmas to be absolute truth. And if you don't agree with all of them, then you must be the worst person in the world. I want to know what people think. If you were going to organize an event, and let's just say a series of events that would over time bring in the excluded 50%. You know, like I'm being loose in my words here, but when I say the excluded 50%, I'm just talking in the United States. Of course, 50% of Americans don't vote at all, right? Only 12% of each side has anything to do with the primaries, or at least maybe it's 12% of each side is it decides the final primary winner. I'm not sure. I've don't trust my statistics right now, but you're getting the idea. The overwhelming majority of Americans aren't on either side. The overwhelming majority of workers that I've engaged with in construction and food service and grocery stores and warehouses where I've worked have all been like, oh, I'm not left or right. Oh, yeah, I see some truth on both sides. Oh, yeah, I kind of like libertarians, but also I kind of like Social Security and healthcare. And, you know, so it's like there is like this kind of normal American position in my mind. You know, and it's an ideal model that is always going to be full of holes, but how to find those kinds of people, and how to sort of in your organizing somehow exclude the extremist fringes, the identitarian left and right fringes, without sort of putting up this big sign that says you're excluded. Because if you do that, then they're going to come running to protest or throw fire bombs into your living room. So yeah, how do you be boring to the people with borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia who've made political identities on the internet? How do you be boring to them? Because that's what you have to do with such people. You have to be boring. How do you be boring to them? How do you interpolate the kinds of people that they wouldn't even want to engage with, but without putting up a big sign that says certain kinds of people aren't welcome here? Because of course, like that's just going to create the kind of controversy you're trying to avoid. What do you think, Nats?
So I think initially I think I don't give a shit, man. I don't fuck with people. Like I do me. I'm not worried about it. And that kind of goes hand in hand with like a lot of people in the chat are saying, have a hobby, find a hobby. Like when I am thinking about social circle or whatever, it's the people I skate with. And it's people I've known from work or just from like happenstance arrangements in life. And they become my friends because they're cool people. I like to chill with them. We have a good time together. But that's like you're talking about organizing. Like if you want to be effective, if you want to have some type of political efficacy, how do you do this organizing in a way that accomplishes these things? And my response to that is, I don't know. I don't do that because it's difficult. Because like it's so difficult that I have decided that for me, it's not possible for me. So I'm not going to worry about it. So like people in the chat, we're talking about have hobbies. I'm a musician. I'm a skateboarder. I'm an artist, this and that. Like, yeah, that's for meeting friends. And that's necessary. We all need friends and social lives. But the question is like, organizing, right? Like, and that is different because when you're organizing, you are going to tend to attract the people who are the most disenfranchised or feel the most disenfranchised.
Let me throw some complexity on here for you, Nance, just with some concrete examples. The theater world is absolutely overrun with the liberal progressive. All of the things that are supposed to be true in this moment that were not like last year are you accept those, you espouse those, you put those in your bios and you share that on your story, or else you're suspect. And it's not just in the United States, that's in Europe. Rudy's a great example of an insider who's there and can see this. Philip in the United States is a great insider who's been all over the States and has experienced this here. Of course, Anne is also in theater here. We have a lot of people, the best people, into theater who are here. And they're the kinds of people who they care about art, they care about theater, they care about these things, but they're also kind of like, oh my God, there is like no real thinking going on. And it's just like, it's what happens. Like all these normies got radicalized. Now they're all calling everything white settlerism. Like, oh, you're teaching your kid math. That's white settlerism. And it's just like, oh my God, Becky, shut the fuck up. You don't know. This is not your lane. And of course, that's like the most PMC thing ever. And I critique it in all of my work. But of course, there is something to that. And so it's like, you know, in terms of organizing, we've been using like various analogies for like what we're doing. What we provide people with is some kind of intellectual edification, what Marx called spiritual nourishment. You know, he said the only difference between the worker and a slave is that the worker during the good times of capitalism is able to attend lectures in the evening, right? And he's able to tutor his children. Well, spiritual nourishment in this sort of materialist sense is something we're thinking about. And of course, you know, we use the gym membership for your mind analogy with the subscribers at Theory Underground. But not everybody needs a gym membership for their mind, or at least not everybody thinks that they do. We also played with the idea of like, what would it mean to kind of do like some kind of like theory church experiment where it's like, it's not like a religious thing in any kind of a standard sense, but like it is like a place for intellectual and in some sense, spiritual, familial, fraternal sort of nourishment and community on a regular basis where people, there would be different kinds of people. Not everybody has to believe the same kinds of things. And the reason that we've not done it already is because of the issue. There's a huge issue with it. And that is that when a person gets into, let's just use the example of Christianity because it's closest to home for me. When they get into that, there is a hierarchy within the church. Even the most leveled churches still have some kind of a hierarchy where the people who do the Bible studies are often like, which are led by deacons who've been through years and years of training. Those people are kind of, you're going to kind of assume that person must know more about this than I do. And even if I don't want to attend Bible studies, if I just want to go to potlucks and Sunday services sometimes, you'll say, yeah, there's this sort of structure and there's these people and they know what they're talking about and they're cool. Well, as soon as you start trying to organize potlucks and do sustainable farming, but also read theory books, there's an instant divide. And I experienced this from years on end of trying to organize with Brian and other people, that you get the theory people who show up who think they know everything and they don't care about getting their hands dirty. And then you get the people who just care about the farming side. And there's this huge split because the people who are just into farming, they're just kind of like, oh, a bunch of eggheads. Who cares what they have to think? And so for a theory church, it's like, yeah, we want normies. We want people who attend, they're just there to hear talking and kind of free associate and have some ideas and be like, cool. They're not looking to get to the bottom of anything. They're not going to read Being and Time and Totality and Infinity. They don't care about these authors. They don't care about these names. But they're there because they're it's kind of interesting. And they don't need to do the deep dive stuff. And they don't have like this commitment to the life of the mind in the sense of like the liberal arts for the rest of their lives. Yeah, but how do you have those people not take over the potlucks and act like the so-called, in this analogy, the deacons, people like you guys, are like just whatever. It's just nerd shit, right? Like how do I don't know. I don't know, and it's really frustrating. And of course, it's a bad analogy. But what I'm trying to get at is that if Theory Underground was to do a monthly meeting or a weekly meeting in Boise, over time, this split will emerge. I guarantee it. And and I can get the intellectuals to be more open-minded, and I can get the rank and file normie to be more tolerant of egg-headed shit, obsessive intellectual bro shit. I can get them to be more tolerant, but how do you get normies to actually have a respect for this stuff? And then at the same time, get people like Nance to say, yeah, I'll mix it up with these normies. I'll kick it. I'll give them all hugs and say, I miss them. And how are you doing? And do you need a hand this week? Like that kind of community shit.
We got to show them that what we're doing is cool and fun. But like seriously, like last night someone commented on my YouTube channel. They were like, I have no idea what this is. I have no idea how I got here, but now I'm along for the ride. So like in my mind, this person is just some random YouTube enjoyer who stumbled onto a Levinas stream. And they were like, oh, those guys look cool. Those guys look like they're having fun. This is enjoyable for me. Like we have to continue to produce. I think we've done a decent job of producing this content that is enjoyable, that is welcoming, but it's also scratching our itch.
It has to.
Like we are able to nerd out. We are able to do the thing, but we're also not dorks. We're cool fucking guys.
Yeah.
If I may say so.
Objectively, yes.
Yeah. We're objectively cool.
Yeah.
But
how do we translate that to in person?
That's like doing it on the internet is one thing, and it's we've done all we've done to get wherever we are here now. But yeah, doing that in real life is hostile to that. Real life is totally captured by capital. Every place, every physical location has to have an economic justification for it. So even when we can scrape together money to rent out a conference room to have a meeting, like I don't know, man, there's so many barriers to being able to do the thing. That is the question. How do we translate it to IRL? Do we find public spaces?
And anybody who thinks it's already been done, please let us know in the chat. I am convinced it hasn't, but I could also be very surprised. Like I would be delighted to know that there's like working models of something that we can riff off of. But right now, what I see is like there's sports and hobbies, and some of them are more or less neutral. Other ones kind of the ranks get kind of overrepresented, sort of become teaming with either progressives or conservatives. And, I'm in jujitsu right now with Ann, and I think that might be the best example so far. Like, one of them is an ex-cop, one of them teaches military people stuff. So of course there is like this, maybe like there's probably some bleed over into some, blue line, cops lives matter kind of stuff, but also like that's still a pretty normie position. But most of the people there are there because they care about their health. They care about being able to defend themselves. They feel more alive when they do this than they would if they were running or doing some other kind of isolating sport. And so, I see like that kind of a community as a good example. But other things that come to mind, there's plenty of them. I've got a whole list of examples of practical experiments, and I would like to actually develop assignments for people like Swole and people like Nance and Cesar. So Nance and Cesar, they are in Phoenix together. Well, what can we do with that? Federico and Will are in London together. Well, what can we do with that? I would like to do this sort of like 2+3 actual human beings in a place doing potentially a hybrid event, if not like an actual live event, but marketing it in a way that does this thing that makes us boring to borderline stalker lunatic people on the internet and kind of just, naturally filters them out by just being boring to them, but being really exciting to everyone else. And so, but before I give some of my examples and, some of these kinds of assignments that we could come up with, Swole, you've just been listening for a while here. So I just kind of want to hear your thoughts about ideas, problems, questions. Surely you thought about it plenty, so you've got ideas.
Well, I had not taken the angle that you brought up of making the group or the scene boring to, like, intentionally boring to those type of people. That was kind of like that's the opposite way I was thinking of. Like I was thinking more, how do we make it cool to the people we want? But actually, we need a social scene that's boring or will turn off the wrong type of people.
Right.
Whether it's through putting them through some type of work that they're not prepared to do, or putting barriers up that'll just enough barriers that'll that'll discourage them. But yeah, how do you make it boring and cool and fun at the same time? That's the work question.
The work aspect, I really like how you brought up work, because I think of it as effort buffers. Theory Underground was set up on a lot of different assumptions that we're trying to do some of these things. And one of them was that people need effort buffers. I don't want to spend any time talking to people who haven't put in some effort to understanding where we're coming from first, before they start telling us where they're coming from. It just is a waste of time. And I want to give people like an avenue to get involved, to be included in the conversation. But really, like the effort buffers and the cool down period is really important. So I see effort buffers as like they have to do something that your average basement dwelling lunatic is not going to do, right? Oh, it would require leaving your living room or your basement. Like, oh, not going to do it. Well, that would be one way. But the cool down aspect is also very important. And it's to say, you don't get it all at once. You don't get to go from 0 to 60 really quickly. So basically, you just have to think, what if a person is on a manic episode and next week they're going to be on a depressive episode? Okay, well, if you meet them while they're on their manic episode and they're all cranked up and they're inspired and they're all telling you about all these things and stuff like that, and you're just like, oh yeah, you're a member, you're part of the group, that quickly, like the Hegelian e-girl council did this. Like they brought somebody on who's like an activist, and oh, you're part of the group now. They just like put that person into like their main group chat, and then of course, like when there was a split a few days later, it was like this huge split. Like they were trying to cancel these people, blah blah blah. Oh, and hey Chris, great to have you. We'll have you.
Hey Chris.
Stop video for now. We'll have you on in about 10 minutes here. But yeah, so this great to have you, man. We're really excited for this conversation. But to close this thing out, I guess I'm just trying to say that cooldowns means that the system doesn't give everything to somebody all at one time. That they actually kind of have to go through their life of ups and downs and you know, a couple months of ups and downs and limited access before they're really going to gain any kind of recognition. So it's like, yeah, you came to an event, that doesn't make you a member. Oh, you paid some money, that doesn't make you a member. You have no ownership over this. Like let there be no like, but of course that has to be subliminal. It can't be, you know, upfront in a sort of way. Because like I said, if you put it up front, you make it clear, then you're coming off offensive to this sort of egalitarian, horizontalist, anarchist tendency that's going to want to firebomb your living room. And so you got to just structure it so that it's boring. My ideas right now involve things like starting on meetup.com, the Boise Film Club, and then the actual description saying, we watch normal movies going on in the theaters. We choose one every month that's in the theaters. We go watch it together. If you didn't watch it together, then there's at least one meeting in the month where you can get together with everybody else. But of course, when they get together with everybody else, it's a hybrid event. All the Theory Underground people who want to be there are present. They all watch the movie on their own. And then the secret is that they're theorists. They're not allowed to use theory. They're not allowed to use concepts. They're not allowed to say the names of the concepts. They're not allowed to say the names of thinkers. Any insight they have into the film, they have to keep that shit crypto. Don't show your power level. And then if a person is just blown away because they've been going to these meetings for 6 months and they want to become a member, and then they find out that there's this whole like theory thing, then that's going to be like, they're going to be like, oh, I get it now. I was wondering why talking to you guys was so different. But it's like, yeah, we like to read old books. I don't know what to tell you. That's basically the extent of it. Boring. And they go, yeah, that is boring. I wouldn't want to do that myself, but I sure love the community side of the stuff that you put on. You could do the same thing with other stuff. I don't know what the best examples are, but I'm curious what comes to mind for you both. And then we'll close this out. So make this your closing remarks. Yeah. We'll start with Nance and then go to Swole.
I've had some small success in the local skateboarding scene here. And that I think it's like not even intentionally. Like it's just I am passionate about theory. I am passionate about the work that I'm doing. So when I go out and when I skate with my homies, like we have these conversations, and they do often seem to find their way back to big ideas and being able to take part in these conversations and use their language, like use the language of big ideas and whoa, isn't that radical and this and that seems to be, you know, effective. I've got a few dudes that I've noticed a market change. And I think I think we have to be able to find something that we're proficient at, where we can use the language, like we can use normal English or whatever your language is, instead of going back into theory speak and doing the nerd thing. And for me, that's skateboarding, and I'm sure there's some other things too. But yeah, I like, we have to keep that front and center and be like, look, we're doing this thing that's fun and awesome. We're not out here, we're not being weirdos, we're not radicals, we're normal people, and we're good at doing the thing that we're doing. And then we kind of like sneak in the theory nerd stuff. But then that becomes a question. Are we doing the noble lie? Are we this and that? And but that's a conversation we have on the back end. That's not, we don't have that out in public where we're like, what is truth? I don't know.
No, I think it's not the noble lie. It is literally deprogramming ourselves of academia speak and leftist in-groupism. And so we actually have to reprogram ourselves to be able to have conversations with normal people. And I said in the introduction of Waypoint that I'm giving myself 5 years to do that process and to learn how to talk to people again. And so, this is all part of that process, but it's also part of like bringing women around. Right now, all the dudes scare the women away. It's true. But, Anne and Liz and Mandy and Nina and Helen, like we've got some cool chicks, but like we want more because that's part of a proper human society and culture, and you can't really have a community without it. And just having a bunch of obsessive dude bros is great. I don't mind, but also I want to do this for the rest of my life. And so we're doing the work so that later we don't have to do as much. And so that's where I see it. Swole, anything you want to say in close here?
Yeah, I think I like, you were going with the movie thing. I wonder if there's a way to do like a kind of woman-friendly cultural artifact themed discussions. Like what you bring up a tweet or a popular video or some viral thing that's going around that everyone's talking about, and like, okay, this is our thing we're gonna riff off of. And that could involve more advanced analysis or not. But they would also you'd have to do it in a way where it wouldn't invite just the debate bro men to kind of dominate everything, in a way that made the ladies feel comfortable to chat. And then also it would have to involve other stuff in the meetings beyond just the cultural artifact analysis, to make it cool and make it fun.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Swole. It's been really great to have you. Looking forward to continuing this conversation soon.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Peace.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of a situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run a review of books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Žižek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time, where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, you know, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button, subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McKerrachers are doing, then the best way is to become a Tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a Tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because Tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, Tier 4 is amazing because it gives you Tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
And finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff. So big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people, Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons, and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god, it's just so awkward. Thank you, Patreon. Patrons. Thank you. Oh, okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons. Thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? God, you guys, just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers.
You do it. You did so good. Thanks, guys.